Welcome to the Ordinary Extraordinary Cemetery, where every death had a life and every life had a story. My name is Jennie Johnson.
Hello, and I'm Diane Hartshorn.
And we have a brand new guest joining us. It's a great
Yes,
way to kick
very
off the new
exciting.
year. But before we introduce him and before we get into his really fascinating topic, we have to celebrate what Pamela McCall told us last week
Yes.
when we were on with her. Today is January 6th, which happens to be George and Martha Washington's wedding anniversary. So if they were still alive today, this would have been their 267th
Wow.
anniversary. I know, which is crazy. And one of the things Pamela told us that they used to do, and she actually emailed us the recipe. George would make a very special eggnog for their anniversary every year. He made it. This was not Martha's recipe. This was his recipe. He made it every year, and they toasted their anniversary with the eggnog. Uh, and you can actually get the recipe through Mount Vernon's website, and I'll make sure I link it in our show
Oh,
notes for you
very
guys.
cool.
So you can make it and try George Washington's eggnog. But we wanted to I did not get a chance to make it tonight. It's the first week back to work after all the holiday stuff and everything. But I know, we still
We
wanted
have
to
our
toast their anniversary and say happy birthday, George and Martha. It's an important
happy
one.
anniversary.
Here,
Happy
here.
anniversary. Cheers. And now we'll move on to today's topic, which we are super excited. Today, we are welcoming to the show for the very first time Andy McPhee. He is an author of 4 books now, as of today, officially, and several articles. You write a lot of articles for young people. You also have the unique, with the particular topic we're going to talk about tonight, medical background as well. So you spent a lot of time working with patients and in the medical industry. So the topic that you chose to write this particular book on, I think, will be a nice tie-in for you. So welcome to the show.
Yeah,
Thank you very
welcome.
much. Thank you for having me.
Uh,
Appreciate it.
so tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, and then we'll lead right into this new book that, again, today's the release date. So
Yeah.
you can tell us all
Yeah,
about it.
it officially published today. So I worked out of college as a registered nurse. I have a dog scratching at the door.
Oh no,
Um,
that's my cat. I'm pretty sure too.
No, we have
so that's
pets,
both
so
of them.
That's okay. Pets are always welcome on here.
Get in here, you goofball. Okay. Um, my apologies for the
no, it's
interruption.
fine.
No, don't worry.
Uh,
My cat is running back and forth right in front of the table. So we're
My
good.
so
grand dog is terrorizing my husband, so we're good.
So I went to the University of New Hampshire and graduated and worked a lot in the operating room there as I worked my way through school, and I worked in the emergency room in a hospital in Connecticut and did a lot of intensive and coronary care. So I have like 20 years of practice in nursing before I got into publishing. And yes, I worked at Weekly Reader and wrote a ton there and 4 young adult
Oh,
science
cool.
books. But I'm retired now, and so this Doctors Riot is my second book as a retired, like writing what I want to write, basically what it is. So I'm
Yes, you get
just,
to pick the topics.
I picked the topic, yes, and as opposed to the other way around. So it's very fun, and I'm enjoying it very, very much.
So tell us the name of this new book.
The name of the book is The Doctors Riot of 1788. Body Snatching, Bloodletting, and Anatomy in America. And it focuses on a riot that occurred in New York City in 1788, about 5 years after the Revolutionary War ended. And the riot was not by doctors, it was against doctors because the anatomists there at New York Hospital, way long ago, obviously, not the New York Hospital nowadays,
Hopefully
um,
not.
yeah, right. They they and their students had been stealing bodies from the African what was then the Negroes burial ground, what is now the African National Monument, and the pauper cemetery nearby. But at some point, some of the students stole bodies from Trinity Church, which was a predominantly white church downtown New York. And that's what got everybody in trouble,
Oops.
stealing white bodies. The black bodies and the poor bodies, yeah, that's not a big deal. Not a big
Right.
deal to New York society.
Right.
was a big deal to
It
the
it
Black
is a big
community.
deal. It just
Yes,
wasn't to the people that
absolutely.
mattered then.
Right, right.
Yes. So what I find interesting about this, some of the now, and as I said before we started recording, we've talked about body snatching and stuff before, and we've covered a couple of cases out of Europe. We haven't really discussed the American side of it, and it's a little bit different. Now, this particular riot and this particular case is actually happening almost 60 to 80 years earlier than some of the other cases we've discussed that were more in the middle of
In
the
the 1800s,
Victorian era
right.
in
You're
the
probably talking
1800s.
certainly about the Burke and Hare
Yes.
murders, and that was the
Yep.
most famous one to come out of that. Um, yeah, this was much earlier than that, but there were a whole bunch of riots. There are actually, uh, hang on, I have to look at my little notes. Well, I'm not going to see it, but there were several dozen anatomy riots after the New York riot at medical schools throughout the rest of the 1700s and well into the 1800s, up until like 1866. It was ridiculous. Just about every medical school in the country had an anatomy riot. People rioting against the doctors in some way, protesting in some way.
Right.
New York was the deadliest by far.
Well, they had probably the most people, but also,
Yes.
um, so how did they, obviously they got caught stealing these bodies, uh, and all of a
Well,
sudden,
let's back up a little bit and let's go back to
yes.
your England, because I think that's a very pertinent
Oh,
starting
yeah.
block.
Perfect.
Um, Body snatching has been around, as you know, and it's different than grave robbing. And let me make that
Right.
distinction. Grave robbing legally is considered stealing property from a grave, but the body itself was not property. Was
Right.
never property. Isn't really property now, which is one of the problems. But in any case, uh, body snatching have been around a long time, and the the anatomist back in the 1700s in England, one of the most prominent one was a gentleman, a physician who started a school on Great Windmill Street in England, and he had William Hunter, his name was, and he had a protest regularly outside his office because they had been dumping bodies and body parts down a well on his property to get rid
Oof.
of them. He was burning some, and it was the neighborhood was upset. It didn't make any difference to him. He kept it up. Now, why did they have to steal the bodies? Obviously, to study anatomy. And
Right.
that's what was the, the crux of the matter for me, and what it still is. We have to learn, not we, I didn't learn on a cadaver. Nurses sometimes do today, but it depends on their specialty.
Right.
But physician assistants, physicians, of course, surgeons, uh, physical therapists
Yep.
learn muscles and they're involved in dissections. A lot of different medical programs use dissection to teach because there's no better teacher.
Right.
That's what I found. I could look, I worked my way through nursing school in the operating room, and I saw any number of cholecystectomies, taking out the gallbladder, and which is right under the liver. And I used to have to hold a retractor that could go in and hold the liver back so they could see the gallbladder. That was years ago when they had a huge long incision.
I
Now
was
it's
going to say
now it's
before,
right. It's nothing now. Well, I don't want to say it's nothing, but it's much, much less damaging surgery. But in any
yes.
case, I could have looked at a liver every day for months and not known really what it was like until they felt it. And
Right.
once you feel it, it's like, oh, the density of it. It's very interesting. You don't know the difference between a vein and an artery uh, until you really feel the difference. The artery is thicker, certainly more, obviously, is more under more pressure, but the vein is much more elastic and much and thinner walled, and it makes a huge difference when you're looking at that anatomy to try to fix somebody's insides. Uh, so that need for physicians and anyone in healthcare at that time to learn anatomy. How else are they going to do it?
Right.
There were no Gray's Anatomy came out in the mid late 1800s. Now, Gray's Anatomy was for many, many years a classic anatomy text. There were others before it, without question. none of those books solved the basic problem of I don't know really what it is I'm looking at. I can
Right.
compare it to a drawing, it's not the same.
Right.
So how else to get the bodies? The Many of the laws in Europe, particularly in England, at the in Edinburgh, for example, which is not in England, obviously, but that was one of the big medical centers, and in
Hmm.
London, they would allow those anatomists to dissect the bodies of executed criminals.
Right.
Then they expanded it a little bit later on to allow the bodies of unclaimed bodies to be dissected, but this still wasn't enough. In the U.S., there were no medical schools to speak of until the College of Philadelphia uh, opened its medical school. Then Columbia opened shortly thereafter. Harvard opened shortly thereafter. Now you've got an increasing number of students who need to learn anatomy, and we didn't have the laws to support it. And in all of those cases, the only way to get bodies, was to steal. Well, not the only way, but the main way was to steal them. And they didn't want to upset anybody. They didn't want to get arrested. So these resurrectionists, as you well know, you talked about Burke and Hare. Most resurrections became quite competent, and they would research cemeteries and stake out the ones they wanted to steal. White bodies were particularly wanted because they didn't get that many of them.
Hmm.
Um, Certainly not in New York. They get, as I say, most of them from the African burial grounds and the pauper cemetery, and many of them were black as well. So we're talking about obtaining bodies that are unusual. And if you think back in the late 1700s, a lot of sickness going around.
Right.
The the blacks and the indigenous at the time suffered, for the most part, more diseases and accidents and things than did the white population, was generally more taken care of,
Mhm.
better able to see physicians and such. So the bodies were different themselves.
Right. Because
Black
they were
bodies,
healthier.
especially, they were healthier. So it was very nice to have a white body, and that's what happened when they went to Trinity Church, and that's what started the whole riot, a white body. Let me
That's
keep going. You go
yeah.
ahead.
Go for it.
Okay.
We're just loving the topic here.
Okay. So um, it never would have happened. Well, let me go back. The prototypical story of how the riot happened is most commonly reported is one of the boys who was in studying anatomy, and most of these were teenagers, remember,
Yeah.
15,
Yeah, they were
16,
young.
17 years old, they were very young, waved an arm out a window to a group of boys who were playing on the grass below. This was a Sunday. Uh, and it said, "Hey, this is your mother's arm. I just dug it up."
Oh,
Now, that is a very exciting way to tell a story. But I don't think that's quite accurate.
yeah. I would hope not.
Because what's he waving it out the window for? This is the serious stuff, these anatomy labs.
Right.
And the anatomist who's handling the class wouldn't have allowed that. What
Right.
makes more sense and was mentioned in just a very, very few sources was that an arm was hanging out drying.
Mm.
Might have just been cleansed, they might have just gotten rid of the blood in it, and they just want to leave it outside. And the boys, obviously, coming to the back of New York Hospital,
Saw it.
would have seen that. Now, the New
Hmm.
York Hospital at the time was under construction. The first row of windows was basically the basement. So you can
Hmm.
imagine that. The first floor started a little bit above that. So the anatomy uh, labs, as close as I could determine, were on basically the first floor, but the second level, if that makes
Gotcha.
sense.
So just a little higher up.
Just a little bit higher up. And the boys that were playing probably were in 9 to 11 range. The
Hmm.
older kids would have been apprenticed or working at home at that time.
Right.
In any case, one of the workmen had left a ladder
Hmm.
outside the hospital, and the boys picked it up, and one of the boys climbed up, got in, got to the window, and he looked in and saw what was going on. I believe that's when John Hicks, who was the main student, and we'll talk about him in more detail, uh, cried out to the boy, "Hey, this is your mother's arm. I just dug it up." That quote has been everywhere, including in contemporaneous reports. So I think that's solid. The kid ran like a bugger to his parents, his father, who was a mason working in the area. He got a bunch of his friends because his wife had just died. He got a
Oh
bunch of his friends.
no.
They went to the cemetery. They found that she was not her body was not there. Didn't
Mm,
go over well.
yeah, I bet not.
They got a bunch more friends and stormed the New York hospital. Now they would have come across, I believe, that back lawn. In any case, the anatomist at the time, there were two of them in the lab, Richard Bailey and his protege Wright Post. Somebody heard something, the commotion, and Bailey knew what was going to happen because Bailey had trained in Edinburgh and then Edinburgh and then in Scotland. He did the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew that people got upset. He came across the ocean and he started teaching the way he knew, which was to have his students steal bodies. So he told the students to get out or hide. And most of them did. Some of them stayed behind. Bailey had an extensive body part collection in jars filled with uh, some kind of preservative.
Right.
And so a few of the students and Wright Post stayed behind. Everybody else escaped. The rioters stormed up the stairs into the lab and destroyed as much of the lab as they could,
Mm.
breaking bottles, ripping down skeletons. Now, there were three bodies in the lab at the time. One was a white woman from Trinity Church, identity completely unknown. None of the identities are known of the bodies or the rioters, for that matter. There was a black body in the midst of a dissection apparently on another table or at least somewhere there. And there was a vat of some kind with another body in it they're making a skeleton. They are dissolving the mass of muscle and ligaments and organs,
Right.
and they want to make a skeleton. So there are three
Sure.
bodies basically. There might have been more. We don't know. There isn't a lot of contemporaneous information because it's kind of embarrassing. I think that was part of it.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. So the mayor came and the kind of broke things up. You all go home. And they departed. He sequestered then. He took some of the students who were remaining and Wright Post, apparently, and he took them to the jail. It's called Bridewell Prison, but it was basically the jail for all of New York City. And there they stayed that first night, Sunday. The next day, rioters again formed, even more of them, because by that time the word had spread all over the place. Travels well, just like it does today with social media. Not quite as fast, but it really
I
travels.
don't know. And it's something like that, though. I'm sure it didn't take long.
It didn't take long, and
Neighbor to neighbor.
everybody knew it, and there were a lot of people who descended into a group at the anatomy lab again. They went through the anatomy lab and looking for students and whatever else they could find. Then they started to go after doctors' homes because they thought, well, maybe the doctors in town are sequestering students, hiding them. And the one we want is John Hicks Jr. He
Mm.
apparently was a student who told the boy that this is his mother's arm. And they're all the sources mentioned him, although we know next to nothing about him. Anyway, they wanted to look for the students, they wanted the doctors because they wanted to beat the hell out of them, basically. They didn't find them. They went to one doctor's home. The doctor let them in. Very, very uh, gentlemanly. The
Hmm.
rioters at the time that sent a few into the house. The physician let them in. Sure, go ahead. They looked all around, including up on the roof. Didn't find anybody. Apparently, Hicks was hiding in the next house behind a chimney
Hmm.
and it was watching the goings on. So he escaped there and apparently left the city. The rioters kept going from doctor's house to doctor's house to doctor's house. More and more dignitaries rushed to the scene. A colonel or a captain, I forget which, went to get him to his house and they rushed and said, "You have to come to the jail right now." And the rioters are heading up there now, and he ran upstairs to get a sword,
Uh-oh.
and he brought it back down. His wife said, "No, no, no, but don't go there, don't go." He went anyway, and he was one of the primary dignitaries at the jail to help kind of ward off these rioters because there were students there. A lot of stuff happened at that jail. Um, at some point, the rioters got really angry and began pelting. We're talking about dignitaries such as the mayor, George Clinton. I'm sorry, the mayor. I'll think of it. And George Clinton, who was the governor. Baron von Steuben was there. Uh, he was, if you may recall, the Prussian officer who came over under George Washington's command and really got the revolutionary forces going and
Right.
organized in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. So he was there. A whole bunch of other, Alexander Hamilton might have been there. And the reason I say that is because in New York City, the area where they were, Hamilton, uh, Clinton's office, Clinton lived outside the city. He was a governor, lived outside the city, but his office, which he stayed in many days, was right basically next to Hamilton's office. The mayor's office was there. Mayor Dwayne, not Dwayne. Yeah,
Hamilton would have
James
certainly
Dwayne.
been
Yes,
aware.
yes, James. It's so good in my memory. It eventually works. Um, luckily, when you write, you've got the source right there, and you could,
Mm-hmm.
don't have to remember it. So all these dignitaries were there when this happened. Jay was struck in the left forehead over his eye with a brickbat of some kind, brickbat of some
Yes.
kind, um, as was Steuben. And Steuben had been to war, and he did not like war. He didn't like people dying. He didn't like people shooting at each other. So he kind of held off any kind of violence that would be ordered as long as he could. But when he was struck in the head and went down, he yelled at Dwayne, "Fire, Dwayne, fire."
Ugh.
Dwayne fired, told the militia that had gathered there protecting the jail to fire, and the fire they did. Several, we don't know how many, rioters were killed. Uh, Many more probably wounded. They initially started firing over the rioters' heads, but
Right.
the the barrage didn't stop, and they moved their rifles down into people, and that dispersed them to a bit without question. Um, but they were still really angry, and they still went throughout the town looking. By the next morning, more militia and revolutionary forces came to the jail and came to town and just rode around, making sure that nobody else gathered. So it was a very tense period for New York, all sparked by taking a body from a cemetery for white folks. Fascinating period of history, I have to tell you.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's one of those catch 22 things also, like you said, we needed the bodies, and we've said this before. We needed the bodies because that's how you learn the body. But taking the bodies without any kind of permission really just was not something the public wanted. And we also have to keep in mind, especially then, but even today, there's a lot of religious aspects when it comes to burial
yes,
and what
very much.
happens to the body afterwards. And so by just going in and pulling somebody's body to come in and cut it up and see how it works and see what all the organs do and the bones do, and like you said,
Right,
everything, people were just aghast at why in the world can't these doctors learn how to do this without
exactly.
cutting up
Yes.
these bodies. um
And just prior to the riot, there was that kind of a discussion, sort of a point counterpoint discussion, if you will, between John Hicks, who uh, gave his name at the time. Many authors of newspaper letters gave themselves a nom de plume,
right.
and his was Abductio. and he wrote against or in response to a letter that was written by, we believe, a black gentleman who owned a cemetery in his backyard, basically, named Scipio Gray, who didn't live very far from the hospital. And Scipio wrote, listen, we have had our bodies being taken over and over. We've complained about it before. And it was a very tactfully, gently written letter. When you really look at it, you can see the anger that's bubbling beneath,
Right.
but it was very calm and very measured. Please do something about it. We cherish the dignity of our dead. We understand they have to learn anatomy, but there has to be a better way, kind of a letter. Abruptio, John Hicks, took immediate exception to that and wrote a rather scathing letter. Why don't you understand? We're the people who are trying to help you. We're trying to learn so that we can take care of you in times of crisis. You don't get it. You're kind of dumb. That kind of an approach. And it was really quite inflammatory. Letters back and forth uh, between others who supported Scipio Gray's point of view and others who supported Abductio's point of view. And it went on for about a week or so. Um, the historians believe that that was pretty much the end of it, that the newspaper publisher decided, I'm not doing this anymore. At first, it was selling a lot of papers, but now it's like, yeah, we're done.
Too much.
And he just stopped publishing letters, or he didn't receive any more. I think he probably stopped. That's my personal guess.
Well, it was sort of a circular debate that wasn't going to be
Wasn't
solved
going
that way.
anywhere. And
Exactly.
it was
Yeah.
just, they were just criticizing each other's
Hmm.
position. So that was very much on the minds of New Yorkers because they read vociferously. That's not the voraciously. They read voraciously. They wanted to learn everything. This is a time when Hamilton and Jay and Madison were writing the uh, the Confederacy Papers. Um, it's my memory again.
I know. I'm trying to think of what they were called
Yeah,
too. My
all
nope,
right,
nope.
we're going to come back to that. But anyway, it's the Federalist Papers.
Federalists.
Federalist
There we go.
Papers. There we go. He gets it. Um, and Jay couldn't do anymore. He wound up having a terrible gout that spring, and he was unable to write anymore. So Hamilton and Madison split his and wrote them. But anyway, they were publishing constantly
Right.
in the
And writing
newspapers,
all the time.
writing all the time, and so people were reading newspapers all the time. So that was the those letters from Abductio and Humanio, who was Scipio Gray, they followed that. They had to have followed that. So
Hmm.
there was an undercurrent of anger, I believe, or at least distrust of the medical men in New York at the time, and that fomented the uh, the riot over the course of that day and a half. Um, and as I say, there were a number more anatomy riots through the years as other people they got wind of what happened in New York. And, they're doing the same thing at this medical school over here. Baltimore was
Hmm.
one. Um, there's another one the same year, 1788. Later on, there was uh, riots or protests, excuse me, in Vermont and Massachusetts. A couple of them, Harvard had its own protest. Michael Sapol, uh, the author of a terrific book on basically anatomy, a traffic of dead bodies. He talks a lot about that period of time. And he said there basically was no medical school in the United States between 1788 and 1866 that didn't have an anatomy riot. That's how frequently they were. Or, as I say, a strong protest against the school.
Right.
So that was a very difficult period. And if you think also, after the Revolutionary War ended, that is when the treaty was signed in 1783,
Right.
that's when it officially ended. For those 5 years, we didn't know what was going on.
Right. We were
We
still
had
trying to figure it out.
we were still trying to figure it out. Uh, there's a terrific book, anybody who's interested in this time period, called Unbecoming British. Unbecoming British. We had grown up as British citizens.
Right.
We submitted to British laws. We had British cultures. We talked in a way British, or that accent.
Right.
Yeah.
And we were trying to find ourselves, and it took decades and decades. And if you think about it today, we love British stuff.
We do.
Royalties? Are you kidding? We think the accent itself lends an air of superiority and intelligence, and that remains from the Revolutionary War. That's embedded within our culture. It's changed over time, certainly, and we've become more and more America
Right.
over the resulting decades. But that British thing is still around, and that all came from after the Revolutionary War.
Well, and I think we're all still
Yeah.
fascinated too, because for a lot of us, we have ancestors that were in England and Scotland and all those parts of the world before they were American. And so when you start tracing your history, yeah, you want to go back and see where you came from, where your family began.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. And I think that's still the case,
oh, totally.
which makes it so unfortunate what's going on even now. You think those days are all over, but they're
Nope.
not. Um, Alistair Cook was probably the most well-known of the victims of what I call modern body snatching. Alistair died at age 96 and went to a funeral home that was part of a network
Oh.
of funeral homes that supplied body parts. So his bones were taken from the casket,
Mm-hmm.
so you couldn't see, but his bones were taken, and they were sold to a what's called a body broker. The daughter never knew, had no idea.
Mm.
It was only later that she realized that. She never gave her permission. She didn't know they were doing this. So it was a wake up call to the medical community and to the funeral industry. Not a lot changed, though.
Right.
Recently, this guy named Mastro Marino in uh, not Long Island, Staten Island, had a network as well of funeral homes, or at least technicians who worked in funeral homes, or morticians, who were getting money by selling body parts of people who came in, their clients.
Mm.
I say body part versus tissues for a reason. Tissues sounds very passive, sounds
Mhm.
Right.
benign. And that was one of the things I learned from researching and talking with uh, people who are involved in body procurement programs now. It's like they don't like the word tissue. It makes it too pleasant. These are body parts.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they're made up of tissue. Skin is a tissue, bone is a tissue, the stomach, the heart, the lungs are all tissues.
But it
But
sounds small and
it
minuscule
sounds
compared
small and
to,
Right.
minuscule.
yeah.
You think of a little under his microscope.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Cells, yeah, no. So what they're doing and what they have been doing for several decades now is using, and we can talk about the morality of this, and I certainly want to. They are using much larger body parts than we think. Bones, skin, the easy ones. Uh, Shoulders.
Mm.
A body can buy the entire shoulder can be removed. Knees can be removed. Eyes, ears, the head, so that dentists and oral surgeons can work on teeth.
Yep.
So the military is involved in this. The medical community themselves, particularly surgeons and oral surgeons as well. A conference will call up a body procurement program, and we'll say, listen, I need 12 shoulders because we're demonstrating a new surgical technique for AC separation, whatever. I need 3 knees, right knees, and 3 left knees because we're going to conference on a new uh, medical device that's going to make it easier to do total knee transplants. Those kinds of things that happen on a regular basis. Australia has bought body parts from us because we have such a robust industry. Fine, fine. Body part, you learn on a body. That's the same thing that's going on now that's been
Right.
going on. You need actual human tissues, body parts, bones, muscles, ligaments to understand and to learn new techniques. So we still need that. The military, for example, torsos, let's say they need 12 torsos because they're doing testing of a new kind of bullet or a new kind of bomb. It's horrible to think of, but it's part of life.
Right.
So the car industry needs certain bodies for certain things that they are developing. How do they get it? They go to a body procurement program. So when a person gives up a body, their body, or the family donates a body to a donor program, they're called donor programs. I've been saying body procurement. It's a kind of let your head get wrapped around that, but they're donor programs, and at a university or a college, medical college. Terrific, terrific. You hope, unless you do research, you hope that that university affiliated donor program is above board, that they tell their donors everything about the program, what could happen to the body after it enters the program's facilities, where it might go, uh, all those here's what our facility looks like. Those are all things that people need to be mindful of when
Sure.
they donate a loved one's body, or whether an individual before death figures things out. And one of the experts I talked with, actually a couple of them said this, it's like buying a house. You research
Mm-hmm.
the house, the neighborhood, the utility costs, all those things. You learn as much as you can about the new house before you buy it. It's the same situation, if not more important. There have been several university-based donor programs that have not been up to snuff. Most recently was Harvard University Medical School. There was a technician there who was part of a network of funeral homes and body procurement people.
Mm-hmm.
He was arrested and he was actually just sentenced. I couldn't get it into the book, but he was just sentenced maybe a month ago uh, to, I think, 6 years he got for being part of this program. Several others in the program pled guilty. He did not. Thought he might get off, and he didn't. There's another one at the University of North Texas. That program got shut down almost immediately. They may open it back up again, and maybe it's open now. I don't know. But it really is something that people need to be aware of. And as I say in my book, it's like I personally, I want to donate my body to a donor program.
Mm-hmm.
And if I wind up getting split up, I don't really know it. My family
I'm
understands it.
hoping you won't really know it at
I'm
that point.
hoping I don't really.
Be a little unaware of all that.
Oh, I could tell you stories. But my family knows he always wanted to help, and after death, he certainly wants to help. So they're going to be okay with it. So if my shoulder goes one way and my hip goes another, and it's like, well, it's fine. Not everyone feels that way. The
Right.
main thing is, I think, is one of consent.
Mm-hmm.
We get consent to have surgery on our
Right.
bodies. We consent to have everything. When you go into the
Oh yeah.
doctor's office, you're consented to the HIPAA form and this and that and the next thing for for a CAT scan, for an
Right.
MRI. But for this, they these people have taken bodies without anyone knowing, and then they find out. Uh, Horrible, horrible. That's the dignity after death part that we don't do that very well. And the
No.
industry is not regulated at all.
Right.
As one of my sources said, if you've got a chainsaw and a garage, you could become a body broker. There's no certification, no registration. Uh, that's hard. That's very harsh, but that's sort of what
Right.
has happened repeatedly. And it's difficult to find these people and difficult to prosecute because we don't have the laws.
Right.
Their transport across state premises, that's you can get somebody for that, but there aren't that many laws that deal with this. And it goes back to the whole grave robbing thing. The body as not property because it's not a living thing.
So
Nor are the
going back,
clothes and jewelry, but yeah, sorry.
yeah. No, sorry, I interrupted you. So going back to the riots,
Yeah.
what after, they had the ones in Alexander Hamilton and all those were involved in trying to squash it down or quiet it down a little bit. What happened to John Jay?
John
John
Hicks.
Hicks.
John
Yeah,
Hicks, sorry.
no idea. He escaped New York and went somewhere. There's no record that I could find, or any of the sources that I read that they could find. It was like he dropped off the face of the earth. Maybe he didn't become a physician anymore, or maybe he went to Connecticut or Rhode Island and set up practice.
Well, people could change their names so
Yeah,
easily, then
and
they
this
could just
right.
disappear. Yeah,
Yeah.
cross the state line and they're a whole new
You have no
person.
idea, right? And as
Yeah.
long
We
as he
didn't
kept
have
a
any
low
sort of
profile, the newspapers aren't going to pick it up.
Hmm.
right.
So yeah, where he went, I don't know.
That's and I'm assuming that with a lot of these riots and these protests, things would settle down for a little while and the schools or whatever would be try and be on the up and up for a while, but eventually it would have to still come back again because again, all these
Yeah.
medical students were still going to need these bodies
Absolutely.
to
What else are you
study.
going to do? There was at one point, it became very difficult for smaller colleges outside of a city, outside a major city like New York or Philadelphia, to obtain bodies. And at least one college, Medical College of Georgia, hired somebody. He was a slave, former slave, named Grandison Harris. And they hired him to go up to New York or Philadelphia, grab a few bodies, whatever he could, come back to Georgia where they would be anatomized. He wound up being hired full time on the faculty. They had just been paying him as a freelancer. Then they hired him as a maintenance man. But his real job was to
Body
go
snatching.
to a local cemeteries and snatch bodies, right? There's a photo I have of him in the book that came from, I say somewhere, of a class of medical students standing on the steps of the college. And in the back row, on the far right, is a thin black gentleman doing this. He's waving. And that's Grandison. He was a hero in the area, really. And certainly the students loved him. But that was a fairly common occurrence in the 1800s. And body snatching really didn't go away, as you know, until formaldehyde was invented.
Right.
And a little before that, Civil War with a formaldehyde cousin. So it took quite a while to for that to change, where they could say, okay, I can fix this
Preserve a
body
body.
with
Yeah.
the vomit, and then next spring when we have the course
Wow.
on the abdomen or
Yeah.
the legs, whatever, that then they could use it then, split it up and whatever. Refrigeration also is enormously helpful. Once refrigeration came in, then it's like, okay, we can embalm them and refrigerate them, keep them even longer. So it
Because
was
people,
it's
yeah,
been a ride. Yeah.
because people didn't think at the time that they would willingly donate their bodies to science because, religious beliefs and everything else
Yes.
were now, that's that's more of
That's
a
kind of gone
choice.
away. Yes.
Yeah. Where back then it was definitely they wouldn't even probably most people would not even consider doing that.
Well,
Yeah.
and
Sorry.
I was going to say, and the fear that people had of science, even
Right.
still, I mean, even today we still have that, but there was, what these doctors were doing, and a lot of them had very good intentions. They weren't like evil people. They really truly wanted to know
Oh,
how the body
absolutely.
worked.
Absolutely. They were wonderful people.
But because the majority of people didn't understand science and didn't understand the body, the idea of them just taking everybody, taking these bodies to cut up and do whatever, just was a terrifying thought. And then
Yes.
and then like you said, the religious implications, what happens, on judgment day if that body is not where we put
Exactly.
it, and
Yes.
or is in pieces, what happened? So I think there's a lot around that.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And the Catholic Church as a one example,
Yes.
um, over the centuries has kind of gone back and forth with
Mm-hmm.
dissection. It was good at certain periods and very bad other periods. But at one point, every pope who died had to be anatomized to look for a cause of death. And
Mm-hmm.
that started with Pope um, Leo X, who died under mysterious circumstances. They found out he'd been poisoned, and so then it's like, okay, every pope that dies now, you
Okay.
have to
From now
you have to
on.
find out from now on.
Wow.
Then later on, it changed again. So religion has struggled with this as well, and
Mm-hmm.
none of them until the Anatomical Gift Act in the 1950s. Until that came along, we had a horrible way of dealing with it. We didn't deal with it. When that came along, that spurred a number of laws that regulate organ donation. Organ donation from a living person or freshly deceased person, highly regulated, very tightly regulated in the US and elsewhere. Body donation, whole body donation, no. There's nothing like
Interesting.
that. There's no anatomical gift act for the body. And I wish to God there would be, because it's a really important thing to have regulation of that, so that we don't have the Michael Mastromarinos out
Right.
there, and the Harvard Medical College, those horrible travesties happening. We have to be able to figure out what it is a body procurement program, a donor program should be,
Mm-hmm.
and then regulate those, because the students love their donors. In 1788, with John Hicks, they didn't give a rat's ass. It was something on the table. I shouldn't say they
Right.
didn't give a rat's ass. I don't know. I'm guessing. But as the years have gone by, as the decades have gone by, medical schools teach their students that that donor is their first real patient. He's the one or she's the one who's really teaching you. And the students go through a very interesting process. I'm not saying everyone does, but this apparently is very common. They begin to, when they first get into the anatomy lab, it's kind of freaky. It's scary.
I'm
First,
sure.
the first day, and
Yeah.
then the night before, I would not want to be a medical student the night before his first anatomy class, because when they get in there, oftentimes their body's covered with, they're covered
Right. They're
with,
draped. Yeah.
they're draped, and it's like, there's like a dozen bodies laying in front of me. And the first time they pulled that drape back, it's like, it's got to be freaky. But as they begin to work on the cadaver, on the donor, they begin to think, I've seen this woman's muscles. I've cut into her abdomen, and I know what her stomach feels like. I know she had some cirrhosis of the liver. I know every part about her, but I don't really know anything about her, because they keep the vast majority of programs keep donor identities secret.
Right.
So the students can't, it's just safer that way.
Right. They can't talk
And
about who they've been
yeah,
dissecting.
right. So they tend to name their donor. Um, they tend to talk with the donors if the donor's alive, not while they're working on it, because there's a detachment that they learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that in nursing school. Every nurse learns that. You just have to
Mm-hmm.
you have to have there are points where you have to detach, and then you can go back to being who you are.
Mm.
These medical students have to do the same thing. So there's a detachment when they're working. They don't think of, oh, this is Bernice. No, no, you can't. Your mind can't work that way. But then when they're done, or as they finish the lab or whatever, it's like, well, oh, you know what, you wouldn't believe what I did on Bernice today. I dissected the whole nerve from the heel all the way up to the knee. It was fabulous. Bernice. They remember these patients forever. And at the end of these programs, by and large, they have uh, donor recognition programs. They invite family members of the students uh, to a ceremony where maybe they place roses, one rose
Oh, I love
for
that.
each. Yeah, some of these ceremonies are remarkably just grab you. They're fabulous. Look up any donor recognition uh, event online, and you'll come across story after story of these marvelous uh, recognition of what the donor has supplied that student, not just when they learned anatomy, but for years and years and years and years beyond.
Oh,
They will
that's so
think back
cool.
of that. Yeah,
That is really cool.
Well, and that brings the humanity back to it,
Mm.
and it takes it just from being a science lesson and a learning lesson to remembering that these are humans, that they did, even if they don't know their real name, even if they know
right.
nothing about who their person was, it at least gives that person their humanity back to,
Absolutely.
so that
Yep.
we remember. I think we kind of thought a lot more about this last year since we chose Frankenstein for our Beyond the Grave event this year. And Dr. Frankenstein goes through that whole sort of moral issue when he creates his
Yeah.
monster,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
he's
Yes.
asked to create the second monster on the monster's behalf. And there becomes that moral dilemma for him because it goes from being a series of body parts that he's put together that he's going to
How it's one.
animate
Yes.
to what am I doing? I have now combined all these horrific things and done some things that I really shouldn't have done. And he learns the hard way. And of course, that was, and of course, that story was written about the same time that these
I,
riots were
I
happening.
was just thinking about
Yeah.
that. Could that have
That's right. It
been
was. Yes.
why?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Very, very strong corollaries there. No doubt.
Yeah,
yes.
interesting.
Well, I was thinking there's a very good chance that even though Mary and Percy Shelley were in Europe, they probably read in their own papers about some of our riots over here. And I know these were discussions they were having amongst their group of friends and things that they were debating at the time. And it's
Well, there was
partially what,
the same kind of discussions were being held in every medical center
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
throughout Europe as well. So this was not a hidden under the rug
No,
kind of issue. This was out in the open for everybody to talk about. So yeah, I interrupted you. I apologize. Go
no,
ahead.
I was just thinking, that some of that discussion and these riots and all of
mhm,
these things that were taking place within the
Yes.
medical community, definitely influenced and inspired our authors like Percy and Mary Shelley
Yeah.
and even Lord Byron and all of those people, because this was the news of the day. And
Yeah.
they were the artists and they were the ones helping to either demoralize or moralize something depending on
right.
how they wrote and what they wrote about.
Yeah.
And so it all again comes back, and then of course you have just the general public reading about all of this or participating in the writing or participating in the protests, and you have the students who are again saying, I'm sorry, I need these bodies.
Yeah. They have you have to sort of compartmentalize things and say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, um, yeah, I know sealing body is. I mean, that's not an easy thing to do. Is take a body out of a grave.
Mm-mm.
You can get pretty good at it.
Well, look
you
at Burke
learn
and
not.
Hare. They did it for a long time.
Yes. So it's not. Ugh, it's kind of gross, but you learn to do it because I got to have this body. I got to have this
Hmm.
body. We have to learn. So that gross part is on one side, and then we have to learn on the other, and they have to kind of keep those separate, or just ignore the morality of stealing a body and focus on the morality of helping people. That's the
Right.
only way really that a normal person would be able to stomach that. Um, Much easier today when you know that the body has been donated, that the family knows that it's been donated
Right.
for the most part.
Well, like you
Uh,
said, it would be great if we had better regulation. I'm surprised there isn't more regulation
yeah,
concerning, what I'm not saying what can happen. Obviously, we're studying, like you said,
yeah,
there's different things that people are
Right.
studying. And so dissection is going to have to happen and things are going to have to come
right.
apart. But what happens afterwards, and where does the body go when you're done? And how is the family notified once that's all
Once that happens, right.
taken care of and everything? And it sounds like some medical schools have a really good program
Absolutely.
and others
And
don't. It's
some
too
don't.
bad there's not harsher penalties though when you've got the people that
Right.
are
We
just
get caught.
taking
Mhm.
taking things.
If there's no regulation, and one of the experts I talked to was a guy named Thomas Champney, and he is a South Florida. He's a big deal in the South Florida donor program environment, and he's been after the government to to get some laws on the books for years, and he expressed how frustrating it was to him
I'm
not to
sure.
have any not to have any movement on this. It starts to get going, and then it just doesn't get the votes.
Mm,
That's happened repeatedly, apparently. Um, so it's an issue that needs to be dealt with. Uh, Today we have a lot of issues that need to be dealt with, of course. So I'm not seeing this issue getting much focus uh, for quite some while, I'm afraid. But it really needs to.
I think it's
Um,
going to be one of those issues, sadly, that it's going to take a lot more people that have to get behind it to
yeah,
keep it in
Right.
front of the lawmakers. If we don't have enough people pushing for laws to happen, it doesn't necessarily happen. But there's always the hope that you'll have at least in America, that one state will figure it out. Because usually when one state or two states figure it out, other
others
states
are dumb.
soon start to follow. So I'm sure you said he's in Florida and it's been frustrating for him, but if he could get Florida to do it, or, somebody in Georgia could do it or something,
Yes,
again, if
Yeah.
we can
Then
get
they'll
it
be
in
like,
one state,
absolutely.
eventually things like this seem to start to roll into the other states. And we just need that precedent to happen.
It sometimes takes a tragedy too, and it sometimes
Yeah.
takes someone
yeah,
really, really well regarded, more so even than Alistair Cook, because that happened a while ago. Like uh,
True.
somebody, and I don't wish anybody dead, but
Right.
if it's somebody who was really well known and something happened like that too, it's like, okay, you can hang your hat on that. That's one of the great things that um, uh, who was the actor? Not Jim Garner, but another one who had AIDS, and that really brought focus to the AIDS
oh,
program back in the 80s. You know who I'm
Rock
talking about?
Hudson.
Rock Hudson, yeah. And he was a linchpin for the
Yeah.
AIDS movement for
Yes, he
years and
was.
years. And so then maybe we need something like that to happen. I hope nobody dies, but
Right.
you know,
Or a
um,
lawmaker has
or a
experience with
lawmaker.
something.
Yeah,
Then that's
Right.
when things will change.
yeah, it's focus things. Sometimes we need to have that happen, but I'd much rather go the legislation
Right.
route, that's for
Before we
sure.
have to. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it would be great, but like you said, it's probably with our current political situations right now, it's not at the top of the
Right.
lawmakers' lists of things that
no,
need
it's
to
not.
happen.
There are so many other things going on that, yeah, this is not. It's not sexy for an issue.
Right.
You talk about some of the issues are sexy. They have appeal to people. People can really grab their hands around them. This is something that's a mess in everybody's mind. Yeah, so it'll be difficult. I think it'll be done eventually. I really
Hmm.
do. But it's going to take some doing to get there.
Right. And like you said, It's not sexy enough. And there's still a huge discomfort around conversations with
Oh yeah,
death.
definitely.
Yeah,
When death
absolutely.
is part of the issue, people still don't want to talk. I mean, we're getting better again, but there's still a
Yeah,
lot of hard conversations that don't tend to happen because
don't
people are
happen.
still so uncomfortable with it. So,
It is. It's an uncomfortable thing, and it takes somebody who is accustomed to looking at things directly head on, and not cowering behind other issues or just being reticent to talk. And there are a lot of people like that, and there are people who don't really understand the whole issue and don't want to get into it
right,
for whatever reason. And yeah, so that lot to overcome there.
it is. Well, Andy, thank you so,
Oh,
so
this was
much.
good. So
This was
good.
a fabulous conversation. So as we said, your book comes out today. We're recording
Right.
on Tuesday, January 6th. Of course, this episode is coming out on January 8th. So folks, you can go and order the book. We will have links in the show notes so you can go and get the book and read all the nitty-gritty details about the riot and the characters involved and what it's led to, kind of where we're at in our modern sense, I think,
Mm.
with all of this. Is there anything else you'd like to leave our listeners with before we sign off for today?
The only thing I would say is to make sure that if you or a loved one is donating a body, oh, I said it really, really dig into it. View the facility, talk to the
Hmm.
people, make sure they're being honest with you, make sure they show you exactly what will happen or what may happen, where things might go. Somebody may not want to cross state lines, somebody may not want to go international, all those kinds of things. But you get that in the book. I would say support your local bookstore. Um,
Yes, we are.
bookshop.org is a great place to get a book because they support local bookstores throughout the country. But otherwise, just I hope you enjoy the book, and I certainly enjoyed talking with
Yeah.
you good folks. It's been fascinating.
Well, thank you, Andy. It was great.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us today. To learn more about today's episode, visit our website, theordinaryextraordinarycemetery.com, where you'll find additional links in our show notes. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to our channel. And if you enjoyed this or any of our episodes, consider leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Your support helps others find our show and discover all of our ordinary, extraordinary stories.
You can also follow us on social media for cemetery facts, photos, quotes, and more. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Ordinary Extraordinary Cemetery. If you'd like to help support us financially, you can donate a cup of coffee by clicking on the coffee cup icon on our website or YouTube, or purchase some of our fabulous Ordinary Extraordinary Cemetery merchandise through our store link.
Until we meet again.